You may have seen this before. This is the My Plate guidance system, sponsored by the government. Now, just because you've seen it before and you may have done an activity with it before doesn't mean we're going to do the same exact thing. So don't worry in case you were not a big fan of that activity. We're going to do something with it, but it's going to be modified. Now, before we get into this, I just want to say that this is based on what the government is saying right now is their recommendation for healthy eating. This could change. In the past, we've had a food pyramid, and that's been outdated. We now have My Plate. This could very well become outdated in the future. That doesn't necessarily mean like what the information here is wrong. It just may not be complete or as up to date as some of the more current research is showing. New research is happening all the time. This is far from settled science about nutrition and what's the best way to be healthy. These things change all the time based on new data. For example, eggs were always considered to be healthy. And then for a while, we realized they're really high in cholesterol. Maybe we shouldn't have so many eggs. We don't want to have high cholesterol. Then we find out there's more than one types of cholesterol. And eggs have some of the good cholesterol in there. So they're healthy again. These things go back and forth. And it's important to be on top of what the newest information is. But just know that it can change. So this isn't set in stone, the always best thing forever. If you have new data that comes out that contradicts this, good, use that new data. But right now, this is what we're going to be using. So we have 5 major food groups that we're using for this: fruits, veggies, grains, protein, and dairy. Let's talk about what some of them are. So fruits. So fruits are high in sugar, but lots of nutrients. So it's really good to try to substitute out. If you really like dessert, if you like sweet things, try to use fruit as like more of a dessert or just like as a good snack. Um, Whole or cut up fruit is much better than just having fruit juice. Fruit juice is not going to be the same. Even if you juice something and you're getting the nutrients from it, you are getting those nutrients, but the fibers that keep it together are really healthy, and you don't get that when you don't actually eat the fruit. So the key consumer message is to make half of your plate fruits and vegetables. Let's see if I can put myself down here so you can see it better. Half your plate fruits and vegetables, and you can see a daily recommended amount there. Vegetables. I cannot recommend vegetables are absolutely delicious. And if you are a type of person that's like, I don't really love vegetables, keep trying them, because there's so many vegetables that I didn't like when I was a kid. And if I never tried them again, I never would know that I wound up loving them. Things like broccoli and Brussels sprouts and zucchini and spinach, asparagus, green beans, all types of foods that I was not a big fan of as a kid. And now I love, and I can't imagine not like eating them regularly. So it's important to always try different types of foods. The freshest vegetables, you want fresh vegetables. Frozen vegetables is good to have, canned or dried. If you saute them in oil, it tastes a lot better. It's not nearly as good for you, right? Because you're adding that extra fat to it, but it's better to do that, right, than a lot of other types of food. It's good to eat red, orange, dark green vegetables. They tend to have more nutrients inside of them. So, for example, you can have iceberg lettuce, which is like a whiter type of lettuce, and it's got a nice crunch to it, but it's not going to be nearly as healthy for you as like the spinach, which is like a darker green color to it. So, again, make half of your plate fruits and vegetables. Then you have your protein. So protein, you want to try to mix it up, have a variety of different protein sources. An ideal way to do this would be like, okay, you have your eggs one day, maybe you have your poultry or chicken another day, and then you have pork another day, fish another day, beef another day, and you just keep rotating between these. You're not having the same thing every day, because then you're going to mix up the different types of nutrients that you're going to get. 8 ounces of seafood is going to be a lot lighter than 8 ounces of the other meat. So it's really good to have that seafood. Grilling, broiling, poaching, roasting are all really healthy ways to eat. Frying is like one of the worst ways that you can have it. And keep meat and poultry portions not too big, because remember, it gets stored as fat if you have way too much of it, and leaner is the better. And then we go to grains. So you want to try, if you can, right, whole grain cereals, breads, crackers, rice, and pasta. Whenever you can do those types of things, a lot of times you'll notice that there is a whole wheat version of it. I know some people don't like the taste of it as much. I do think it's an acquired taste. I personally like the taste of it better than regular, just like, let's say, white pasta. I like the whole wheat pasta a lot better. Another thing that I try to do sometimes, if I'm going to try to get more vegetables in my diet, let's say I don't love vegetables. Well, they have all sorts of vegetable versions of these grains. So, for example, I'll sometimes buy cauliflower rice. And does it taste as good as regular rice? No. But if you have a really good sauce to go with it, you don't really notice it. Another thing I love to do is I'll take zucchinis and I'll spiralize them and I'll make zoodles out of it, or zucchini noodles. And that's a great replacement. Instead of spaghetti, you can have that. And then you can have a lot more of it and really fill up on it without feeling guilty that you're having too many calories. So again, if you're going to try to have grains, which is a good thing to have, grains give you a lot of good energy there. You want to go whole grain foods. Don't make your whole meal. If you're looking at your meal and it's like basically all grains, like if you have a big bowl of mac and cheese, all you're having is grains and dairy and basically nothing else. So you want to see if you can factor in those other things. So make half of your grains whole grains if you can, at least, if not all of them. And then we have dairy. So if you like milk, let's say, right? There is, of course, you can have whole milk, you can have skim milk. There's 1%, there's 2%. So in order, whole milk is the heaviest. Has the most fat. 2% has the second most amount of fat. 1% has the third most, and then there's like no fat or skim milk. So low fat or fat-free dairy products have the same amount of calcium and all the other good nutrients inside of whole milk, but without all the fat and the calories. So if you can stomach it, if you don't mind having that instead, it's a lot healthier for you. I always grew up having 1%, so that's kind of the percentage I'm used to. I've noticed that 1% is also really similar to almond milk. Some people like that as an alternative. Some people like oat milk. Some people like coconut milk. I've heard coconut milk is a lot closer to like the 2% consistency. So if you can, switch to low fat or fat-free milk, and that's how you can get your calcium-rich foods, is by doing that. Now let's think a little bit further here. Overnutrition is often caused by people eating too many foods that contain high amounts of added sugar, solid fat, sodium, refined carbohydrates, or simply just too many calories. I think a lot of people in this country suffer from overnutrition. That's why we have what's called like an obesity problem. And there's a lot of places in the world where they suffer from undernutrition, just not being able to know where your next food meal is coming from. So overnutrition is often caused by people not knowing what's healthy and what isn't. If you're eating McDonald's every day because it's cheap, and you don't really know how to cook that well, that's going to lead to obesity over a long period of time. Let's talk a little bit about food labels and safety. I think I'm going to ask you to write some of these things down. I'm pretty sure this is in your notes. So how can we reduce the chances of getting sick from food? Wash your hands with hot, soapy water to kill germs. There are charts to figure out how much you should cook your food to the right temperature. You can like stick a meat thermometer in there and check to make sure, because certain types of bacteria will get killed off at certain temperatures. And you want to make sure that you cook it to that amount, because if you eat undercooked food, that's a really good way to get sick. So make sure you cook food to the appropriate temperatures. If there's hot foods, keep them hot, reheat them. If they're cold foods, keep them cold, because the bacteria will basically fill in. Otherwise, as soon as you leave food out, bacteria can start to form on it. Refrigerate and freeze food that's going to go bad. Otherwise, it'll go bad quicker. Always wash off your counters and tables. Anything that food could potentially go on top of with hot, soapy water. Wash your fruits and vegetables before you prepare them, because you don't know who's touching them beforehand. And if you have any cans that you find that are like leaking and there's like open already, bacteria definitely would have gotten inside of it already, and it is not safe to buy those. You should throw those away and not even chance it. Let's talk a little bit about serving size. Suppose you look at the label for a bag of caramel crunch popcorn. I don't know if you like that. I think it's pretty good. And you see that it contains 100 calories. So that's great. That's not too many calories. You can deal with that. So you eat the entire bag before you start to realize, well, how can such a large serving of this snack only have 100 calories? What mistake did you make when you looked at that label? I'm assuming at that point, this person forgot about serving sizes. So when you look here, it says serving sizes per container. Now for that caramel crunch popcorn, it may have been 20 servings that it was saying. So the whole thing may have been 2,000 calories, which is, like I said, for you might be your entire day's amount of calories that you may have just had in one snack right there. It's a great way to add extra weight, which is not really what we're looking to do at this point. So the Food and Drug Administration requires any food sold in a package to include this, the nutrition facts label. This is a partial label that shows the serving size. The serving size is right here. It's 1 cup, right? Other servings per container. So that means that there's 2 serving sizes inside of this, and the calories per serving. So this one, there's 250 calories per serving. If there are 2 servings, that means the entire amount should be 500 calories, right? You multiply it by 2. There's 12 grams of fat here. They break it down how much is saturated fat that comes from animals. Then there's trans fat. Trans fat is not really good for you at all. There's a certain amount of cholesterol inside of it, sodium, which is salt, carbohydrates. We break that down into how much fiber is in there, how much sugar is in there. We talked about all this already. And then you have your proteins. Remember, it shows a daily percent. This is how much in total, if you have a 2,000 calorie diet, how much of it you've reached already. So if you have 1 serving, this is about 1/5 or 18% roughly of your daily amount that you should have. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is the ingredient list. So the ingredients in a food appear on the label in descending order by weight, meaning that the most amount of stuff that's inside of it is going to be listed at the top. And then it's like a lighter amount, the less of it that's used goes down and down and down. So generally, if there's a lot of ingredients, it means that there's a lot of preservatives in it, things that keep them healthy on the shelf, and you're not going to see that much. If you buy something like honey, it's going to say list ingredients, honey. That's it. That's how you know that it's like a really pure food and there's not that many ingredients inside of it. The more ingredients, not always so good. And you want to look out for certain things. Like if you see like high fructose corn syrup, that is a type of preservative in there that is really good at basically making you not feel full. And then you're going to want to eat more of it. So I know like my family for the past couple of years has been avoiding any type of food that even has high fructose corn syrup in it. Even though it's good at making food last longer, there's other types of preservatives that do that don't seem to have the same negative effects on your body. So just something to keep in mind. It has there's different types of sweeteners that are listed in there, and like aspartame and all different types of things can really change the flavor of things, and you don't want too many of those ingredients in there. And this is just the last image right here. If you want to take a look at this, it shows all the different things, breaking it down: serving size, calories, nutrients, the vitamins and minerals that are inside of there, and the daily percent value. That's it.